Like a tradition. Okay, got it.
There you
go.
go. You could have done that.
There you go.
Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 20th, and I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education. Ms. Stoikwe, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Coco?
Here.
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Item B, agenda. Number 1, motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda of the April 20th, 2022 regular Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, Treasurer, or Superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Item C, opening ceremony. Welcome, our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. Number 2, informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, they must notify the superintendent and/or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, comments will include the name and address of the individual and be limited to 3 minutes. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen, and for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the librarian's desk. The next regularly scheduled meetings are May 4th and May 18th here at the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library at 5:30 p.m. and a 6/12 construction meeting is scheduled for April 28th, 2022 right here in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library at 6 p.m. Now for our Pledge of Allegiance and positive reflections, Ms. White.
If you'll stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Education is not just another issue. It is the most powerful force for accelerating economic growth, reducing poverty, and lifting middle-class living standards. Well-educated adults earn much more, live longer, and happier than poorly educated adults. David Leonard, The New York Times.
Thank you. Item D, presentations. We have a number of presentations tonight to celebrate achievements of both staff and students. First up is our Staff Recognition Staff Star Award, Mrs. McClure.
Good evening, everybody. So the Staff Star Award is given once a month to a staff member who is nominated by his or her colleagues. It's something that we are doing so that our staff can recognize each other for the great work that they are doing. And this month we are recognizing Mr. Alex Orris. Alex, you want to come on up? So Alex works for us in the capacity of what's called a CTIS, or Classroom Technology Integration Specialist. And so he had 2 staff members nominate him this year, throughout the course of this year. So I'd like to share their words, and I'm also going to ask Mr. Ryan Hutch, who is our Director of Instructional Technology, to say a few words on Alex's behalf. So Alex is always there for us. If we have a question about a program we have planned or just a general tech question, Alex always has the answer. He never makes us feel like we are bothering him or that we are keeping him from something more important, even if maybe we are. He positively impacts not just student growth, but staff growth, in that he will even suggest tools to help us do our job better. And when we do our jobs better, students do their jobs better. Alex has been there to help us from day number one. He's constantly offering suggestions on which apps to use, sites to use, and which extensions might be helpful. Through technology integration, Alex helps us to further help our students. This man is there whenever you need him, and he will walk you through any tech issue. God bless him during map testing especially. So Alex, we are just so happy and thrilled that you are part of our Black Tiger family. So we have a couple things for you, and then I'm going to let Mr. Hutch say something, and then certainly let you say something. So we just have a certificate. It says, in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the achievement of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District students and support of the Cuyahoga Falls School District, and a Black Tiger Pride pin. Those are for you. And then you also get the Staff Star Award, which you can display wherever you'd like, in your car or in your office or wherever you want. We'll show it to everybody. So it's a big star. It looks like that. And it says, Star Award recipient in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the achievement of Cuyahoga Falls City School District and support of our staff members. So thank you so much. I'm going to give you this. Thank you. We appreciate it so much. You already have that too.
So in our district, we actually have 4 classroom technology integration specialists, and they are probably the most outstanding professional team I've ever gotten to work with. They are truly outstanding. So that Mr. Orris is here as the tip of that iceberg is just a testament to him. Everything that was said in those nominations is so true, because there is no bother. He is so thoughtful at how he approaches problems of practice for every teacher across every discipline. And you'll never find a person more willing to help with any problem anywhere and with a more creative solution. So I'm just so honored to have people like him on my team. And there's not enough good words. Anyone who's worked with him knows this to be absolutely true. There just simply aren't enough good words to explain how helpful, thoughtful, kind, polite, non-judgmental, encouraging. There just aren't enough positive adjectives to describe somebody of this professional caliber. And I'm so lucky to have a team of 4 of them. And just Alex at that tip of that is just fantastic. So thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Well, I have a bunch of students here as part of the next board agenda meeting, and I'd actually like them to be a part of this.
Okay.
Because what I do is work with staff and really is to influence students. So if we can kind of bring them up too.
Sure,
And
go ahead.
I want to say some things about, you want me to introduce
Yep.
them too? All right, great. So I guess first of all, I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm in our district, which allows me to work with both staff and students. So I would like to thank the Board of Education and Mr. Hutch and Mrs. McClure for this recognition. But it's really the kids that I want recognized today. So since 2018, students at Roberts and Bullock Middle Schools have had the opportunity to do robotics or technology club. With me, we learn about coding, building robots, programming, some Chromebook basics, and they do 3D design and printing. And they get to choose the areas they want to focus on, and they form groups and work with students towards those same goals. And out of our tech club that meets bi-weekly at each building, we had a robotics team that entered into the 2022 Neotech robotics competition. And some of those members are here tonight that we'd like to recognize for their outstanding achievement. But also as a collective team, they took first place in that competition. So with me, I'd like to introduce Ariana Maneski Jones. She's an 8th grader at Bullock Middle School. And Ariana was instrumental in that first place. Come on up. She was instrumental in that first place trophy because she took first place in the maze, which was worth 5 points. From Roberts, I'd also like to introduce Martin Smith, who took second place, and that was worth 3 points. And so those 2-point totals alone allowed the team to win first place. But supporting them and competing right alongside them we have 6th grader Ariana Ruggles from Bullock. Ariana. And also we have 6th grader Bailey Sparks from Roberts. We have 7th graders from Bullock, Desmond Crabtree. Cameron Durfee. Cameron, will you bring up your award back there? He helped me carry it in. And Tyler Eisentrout. And sixth grader from Roberts, Joseph Kessler. I'd also like to mention those who couldn't be there. So from Roberts, sixth grader Olivia Freeman and Zoe Moorhart. And also from Roberts, sixth grader Brady Burns. So we had 11 teammates in the competition, 6 from Bullock and 5 from Roberts that worked together. And they were supported by about 15 to 20 kids that are in Technology Club but didn't come to the competition with us. And I just want to say I'm extremely proud of these students and the entire group, because not only did they display teamwork, leadership, and hard work, but their sportsmanship represented our district wonderfully.
We have flowers for all of them as well.
Oh, wonderful. This is so exciting. Okay, here we go. Congratulations. Joy.
He gets a flower too.
Oh, sorry.
Everybody gets a flower.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you, appreciate that. You're gonna need help carrying your stuff too. Thank you so much, we appreciate it.
Next up is presentation number 3, Staff Recognition Care Award, Dr. Cruz.
So back in April, we had a district compact care committee that recognizes individuals from each district who unselfishly donate their time and energy to promote student wellness. So CARE stands for Chemical Abuse Reduced by Education. And this year, we had 2 staff members recognized from Cuyahoga Falls. We had Mrs. Melissa Fitzsimmons, and we had Mrs. Crystal Nakaza. Mrs. Fitzsimmons is our school counselor. She has served as a counselor at both Bullock and Roberts. And she has been committed to prevention programs such as Summit County Youth to Youth. And she has demonstrated tremendous success with those programs and with working with our students. We know that middle school is a critical time for youth development, and she worked tirelessly to ensure that students have the necessary supports to successfully transition to adolescence. She empowered them to make healthy choices and assisted them in developing positive coping skills. So she was recognized at this dinner, and she's not able to be here tonight, but we wanted to make sure that we celebrate and congratulate her as well. And then our second recipient of an award at the CARE recognition was our district nurse. And this year, the 6th District Compact recognized all of our nurses for their dedication to supporting the health and wellness of our students and staff during the pandemic. And we are incredibly grateful for Mrs.
Nikaza.
There we go, Nikaza. We are incredibly grateful for her tireless efforts during these past few years. She has been an incredible support to us, from contact tracing to vaccine clinics and Band-Aids and all kinds of good things that happen in our health clinics, more than just Band-Aids. But we certainly appreciate her dedication to keeping our Black Tiger community as safe as possible. So congratulations to those 2 staff members.
Now for our presentation number 4, our top Tigers, Mr. Shabity.
Thank you. Good evening. It's always a pleasure to give this award out. I especially like every month at the second board meeting, we always do the middle school and high school. And I think it's pretty neat to be one of those students that is considered a role model for the other students in the building. Before I introduce our students, I'd like to introduce a special guest, the Executive Director of the Cuyahoga Falls Schools Foundation and Alumni Association, and a fellow alum, Mr. Gary Medcalf's going to tell you a little bit about the program.
Congratulations to the top Tigers this evening and to all the other fantastic Black Tigers for your awesome work. We'd like to thank our top Tiger sponsors, Donato's Pizza, Dietz's Florist, Young Screen Printing. Some of the things that the Schools Foundation does, they've helped out with the new entrance to Clifford Stadium, Tiger Trail. We help with class reunions, individual classes. We do an all-class reunion. We honor distinguished alumni every year. In the past 7 years, we provided over $35,000 worth of teacher and staff grants and scholarships. In the past 7 years, we provided over $1 million worth of scholarships for our graduating seniors. Thank you, and once again, congratulations. Oh, last but not least, I keep forgetting. All top Tigers will get a lovely t-shirt this evening. See me afterwards across the hall in the cafeteria. And you'll be getting more information next month. We will be marching in the Memorial Day Parade this year. Thank you.
Dr. Cruz, if you help me here. We're going to call up the students one at a time here. When I call your name, if you'd come up and I'd like to read a few things about you. First, from Bolik Middle School, Samantha Chris. Is Samantha here? Come on up, Samantha. Samantha is a 7th grade student at Bolik Middle School. She was nominated by Mrs. Jennifer Morris for the month of March 2022. Samantha works hard at everything she does. She is involved in the news team at Bolik, and she puts in extra work to make sure that it is successful. In class, Samantha takes extra care with her work, often asking to start assignments early to make sure she understands what she should do in order to do her best. Samantha has really started to advocate for herself, and when she questions, she emails teachers even in the evenings and on weekends to make sure any issues she is having are addressed. Samantha has a lot to be proud of and is the highlight of many of our days with her positive attitude and easygoing disposition. Congratulations, Samantha. Also from Bolik Middle School, Logan Lynch. Is Logan here? Logan is also a 7th grade student at Bolik. He was nominated by the 7th grade team. He was chosen to represent Bolik's 7th grade team as top Tiger for the month of March. All of his teachers unanimously agreed that he has earned, very much deserves this award. Logan is a student that is very focused in each of his classes. He is very organized and prepared for each day. He sets an example for his 7th grade classmates each day when he arrives at school, prepared and ready to learn. Additionally, Logan is a joy to have in class and has the tools to become a real leader in the even outside of the classroom. We are proud and honored to have Logan Lynch as our 7th grade Tiger of the Month. Congratulations, Logan. From Roberts Middle School, Summer Nelson. I don't think Summer could be here tonight. I think she's ill, so we'll make sure she gets her recognition. Also from Roberts Middle School, Nolan Bishop. Nolan, are you here? I like your sweatshirt there, Nolan. Nolan is a 6th grader who has already figured out how to be successful in life. Just smile and be kind to everyone. According to his language arts teacher, Mrs. Mays, Nolan is a kind, respectful young man who pays attention and takes good notes. When he does not understand something, he is always willing to ask questions for clarification. We feel fortunate to have Nolan with us at Roberts Middle School and look forward to watching him continue to be the excellent student and person we know he is. He is our top Tiger. Congratulations, Nolan. Even the high school has some good kids every once in a while. At Cuyahoga Falls High School, students in 12th grade, this student was a 12th grader. I Senso. Are you here? I Senso. Not here tonight. All right, we'll make sure they get their award. Evan Ware, is Evan here? Evan from the high school? You know, during this time of year, there's a lot of activities, sports, and other things going on, and it's tough for some of the high school kids that are working to make it, but we'll make sure they get their recognition. Again, congratulations to all of those top Tigers. You may leave at this time if you want to. You might be able to convince your parents to get you some ice cream or something, but you're welcome to stay if you want to hear this guy over here in the short sleeve shirt talk about gigabytes and terabytes for an hour. But if not, you're more than welcome to leave. So thank you for being here. Don't forget your t-shirts out in the cafeteria.
Resilient leadership and then literacy.
Resilient leadership first.
According to
Great.
in the moment that I can actually provide.
Specifically.
Sorry, you probably wanted to see your TikTok, didn't you?
Oh, shoot.
My TikTok.
Yes.
No one's gonna see it now.
I got another one for you too.
Locked on school computers, I'm pretty sure.
That's a good question. I've never tried to get it on an actual computer. I'm always on my phone. 35. People do it.
Next up is presentation number 5, our April book study presentation, Group 4, Resilient Leadership 2.0.
All right, so this is so exciting. Thank you for introducing us. So we had, there were 6 of us in our group. Well, we had a few more, but
Would
you
you
know,
like
things
your group
change.
to come up?
They're coming. Come on, here we go. All right, so we had me, we had Tom DeFrancisco, Tracy Early, Jessica Mihalik, John Myers, and Carrie Schaefer. We also had Karen Schofield, but with the changing of the guard in January, she now gets to just enjoy the presentation with us and reap the, just enjoy.
My part anyway.
She's here for support and resilient leadership. So, all right.
We wanted to start our presentation with a quote that was connected to our reading, so I'll read it here. Human lives are not pieces of string that can be separated out from a knot of others and laid out straight. It's impossible to understand one part without having a sense of the whole. Think about that for a second. You have not pieces of string that can be separated from the whole. It's impossible to understand one part without understanding the whole. And the connection I make to this, it seems like no matter how neat I put away extension cords, when I go to get them, they're always in a knot. Or my son's 2 years old, no matter how neat we put his toys away or the dreaded Slinky, it always comes out in a knot. And at first, you just start pulling at it. You get frustrated and the knot just gets worse and worse. But you take a step back, you kind of look at it as a whole and start to understand all of the pieces and parts of the knot, then you're able to separate it or to resolve the problem. And that really makes a really good connection to resilient leadership and a well-differentiated leader. And as we move forward, the rest of the team will kind of continue to describe some of the things that were relevant in our reading.
Yeah.
Is reading resilient leadership as we move through. We're doing strengths and vulnerabilities. These develop as we move through life's experiences, and others are inherited from our family. That's our family we grew up in. These are a part of the package of who we are, and we're usually using these when we're in our position of leadership due to the fact of these experiences. These inherited strengths and vulnerabilities are so much a part of who we are. They have shaped our outlook on our lives as well as guide our actions, okay, as leaders. Our strengths can act as a wonderful resource we can call upon when needed. Our vulnerabilities, if I say that right, I keep messing that one up, can land us in unnecessary trouble, especially during times of stress. So we looked upon that. When we were reading this during our book study, it was impacted me because most of the things that I got was growing up with our family, learning a lot of leadership skills in there. When we get to the next piece, we start talking about some family things in chapter 8, is even more profound because when we start talking about some family interactions. So that's the piece I had.
The next piece is the presence of the past, and what spoke to us here is that as leaders, when you move into a leadership role, that even though you want to move forward, you have to recognize the past of an organization and what the strengths and vulnerabilities have been over the years, and that to really have an understanding of those that you're leading so that you can really make an impact and have a strong influence. You want to make sure that you are recognizing things that have happened in the past, but then help to build a better future for the organization.
Organizational strengths and vulnerabilities. Leaders who are able to understand strengths and vulnerabilities of the system that they are responsible for are in a much stronger position to influence that system for the better. Strengths that a skilled leader might recognize are capacity for risk-taking, ability to withstand criticism, stamina to persist in the pursuit of the goals, decisiveness. Some vulnerabilities that a leader might recognize are over or under functioning, distancing, silos, anxious triangles. And by recognizing the strengths, you can help build up those in your organization and reduce the influence of the vulnerabilities in the same organization.
And again, moving into another quote that makes a connection to our chapter 8. Every person has a greater reservoir of strength and resilience than meets the eye. So really what this quote is telling us is that what we don't know is what everyone is going through, but everyone has a little bit extra in the tank. And well-differentiated leaders, successful people, they don't just overcome adversity, they embrace it, and realize that they become better versions of themselves, wiser versions of themselves for pushing through and overcoming. And those are opportunities where really our greatest growth comes from, and there's moments of being uncomfortable and pushing through. And Tommy made a connection to some of the things within your family in this chapter, and one of the things that spoke to me, that this quote speaks to me, is in my life, there's an event that happened, and I'm able to really speak to this in a positive light. When I was in 8th grade, I had a house fire. And it's an image that I'll never forget, but I'm able to speak to it with passion, with positivity, because it's not that, and it was on Christmas Eve, it's not that I think back to being 14 years old and thinking about all of the things that I was missing or going to lose on Christmas. That's really an opportunity for me that now I look back in connections from this book, is that really was a moment that I can speak to as it saved my family. Not that my family was in a bad spot, but the relationship I had with my mom, my dad, and my sister has really brought us together because of that one event. So even though it was a very traumatic event, by giving a little bit extra, by looking at it through a different lens, that's a moment now that I can speak back very positively, because my family is together and as close as one because of that event. And there's some connections within this chapter that came from that.
So Chapter 8 really went into empathy and avoiding the empathy trap. And so having empathy is important, and it is important to have, especially as a leader. But when we're looking at avoiding the empathy trap, what we're looking at is avoiding using phrases like "we are family here," "we have each other's backs." And the reason for that is because it really brings about a culture of conflict avoidance. And sometimes there are situations that need to be confronted, that need to be worked through, even if it isn't comfortable. And so you, as a leader, you want to be able to challenge others, to be able to push back a little bit so that there can be some productive conversations and decisions that are made. So it's important to be empathetic and sympathetic to your colleagues, but it's also important to not fall into that so much that you choose comfort over challenge.
Next one is boundaries. The good part about this is a leader, close enough, but distance enough, okay? It's easier to balance emotionally with family, community, and work during ordinary times, but under stress, the balance point can be much more difficult to find and maintain. We can probably actually use this over the last couple of years. High stressful times, it was, you know, you turn to your family so you could get that balance, and they were the ones to turn to. It was some difficult times. Next part we move into, almost every organization and family will at some point have a member who behaves in a poorly differentiated way for a time, and maybe for a long time. I'm sure we've had those over the years, and everyone else has had those as well. A poorly differentiated person is a highly reactive, intrusive to others' boundaries, and does not take responsibility for oneself. They frequently demand a disproportionate amount of time and energy for others in an organization or family to manage, live with, or even contain. And I don't want to bring up family situations, but somebody or one of us, our families, we probably have that member. They take up a lot of time and energy. You hate to say it, you love them, but you hate to say that they take up a lot of time and energy. There's a lot of work into that person. This frequently comes at a high cost to the team or the family member, and can cause real resentment of the poorly differentiated member. A good place to start is to look at our own functioning. A well-differentiated team member or family member will stay connected, stay on course, and stop under-functioning. They will avoid difficult behavior or over-functioning to save the poorly differentiated member. And that is part about being a resilient leader, being able to see that and tie those connections together. They want to, those that stay connected, they face and resolve conflicts that are caused by the poorly differentiated, and they engage with others thoughtfully, asking, what is the responsible thing for me to do in this situation with a poorly differentiated member? Okay?
The third big idea in the book was the new way of leading act as the immune system of the organization that you lead. We've all heard of no pain, no gain, or what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The third big idea builds on this thought process by applying it to the workplace. The power of a leader is the confidence in their staff to be able to handle situations that arise. It is a problem that is their domain, and the employee knows that you support them and will allow them to do their job. It is the responsibility of leadership to strengthen the organization's immune system or resilience by allowing them to experience challenge and pain. People learn by doing. Simultaneously, leaders need to learn to increase their threshold of stepping back and allowing staff to do their jobs. Be supportive, help only when needed. People can only learn what their capabilities are by stepping outside of their own comfort zone.
So we wanted to share some images here of our students and their ability to be resilient. And we made a connection to performing with being a resilient leader. We know that performers, in these cases, are students, whether it's music, theater, visual arts, or sports, that they certainly show their strengths and they show their vulnerabilities. And we're all filled with our own stories and our own emotions, but it's important that we navigate those feelings and stay present and perform from our hearts. So, Bernie, next slide. That's okay. So there was a little instrumental music that played, but it wasn't relevant. The faces and the actions are what's important. So as you're enjoying these last few seconds of this, we wanted to showcase our students. Every day we are impressed by their ability to be resilient in the face of a lot of challenges. And again, that connection back to each of these artists, each of these athletes are carrying their own stories, and they're able to be present, to be focused in that moment for the good of something else. And that idea of having a greater, serving something greater than ourselves as leaders is what we talked a lot about. So this last slide shows, see, look at the sparkle. So a well-differentiated leader, as we've highlighted, focuses on strengths, analyzes their own stuckness, recognizes that reactivity is a natural response to a system that is being challenged, sees a problem as a symptom of anxiety, faces and resolves conflicts, takes a challenging attitude that encourages responsibility for self. So for us, this idea of a well-differentiated leader was about having our own light, but then being able to share that light with others. And so Tracy's going to help here with this bag. Here. So we have a little token. So for all of the members who participated in the book study, we have some sparklers, and they all have a little quote on there, and then just, of course, a little reminder of the book that we read. And we wanted to thank everyone for growing in their resiliency, but also remembering that it's important as the resilient leader to keep your own light intact, so that you can share that with others. When I think about sparklers, that excitement when you have your own one lit, and then somebody lights it off of you, that little moment where that spark gets a little bit brighter, we just want you to remember that for us was about being a resilient leader. So we will pass these out. We have 36 people who participated, so we have pass them out to the board. Karen, Julie, Kevin.
Notice he's not here.
Thank you.
You were here for books then.
I don't know if these were approved by the safety plan.
I don't know. They better have been on the safety plan. Don't write him in school.
Were they approved by Joe Pagani?
He's not here. He's on vacation.
Well, he doesn't know. And they sparkle.
I don't think this is on the safety plan.
Not lighting them up in here, is it?
What's she doing? Joe's not here?
I got one.
Out of control.
Yep, I put it in my bag already.
That was quick.
Yeah. I already took mine. I already got plans to light them right there.
One more.
Thank you, ma'am.
There we go.
Okay. Presentation number 6, 612 literacy update, Dr. Cruz and Mrs. Dudon.
Thank you. So we're here to give a little update about where we are in our secondary literacy adoption. This has been an exciting journey to be a part of with Mrs. Judones, as she has really spearheaded this and done an excellent job leading this. So I'm going to turn it right over.
Thanks. Mr. Gomez, members of the board, thank you for having me here this evening. As Dr. Cruz said, this is an exciting mission that we're on. I've been meeting regularly with our 612 Literacy Committee, and people are at the point, we're getting so close to a final decision, people are just really getting excited. So one of the first things we did is we sat together and we talked about what it is that we want for students, and we wanted to make sure that we were keeping these things in mind, the district's vision, mission, and focus areas, thinking of how are we meeting the needs of every student every day with every opportunity. How can we show that culture of caring? How can we personalize education? And then keeping those focus areas in mind, including the resource leveraging, because we want to be responsible about what we're spending and how we're spending it. And also, we wanted to keep in mind our portrait of a graduate, especially as we head into this secondary 6 through 12. We are thinking about what our students are doing as graduates. Will they go into a career? Will they go to college? Will they enlist? And we wanted to make sure that we found a resource that we thought would help us address each of these areas, and then specifically those areas in bold, their academics, social skills, their emotional well-being, life skills, etc. So there are a few phases in our secondary literacy adoption. So we are still in phase 1. So I will go through each of these things as we move on, but first we established a leadership team and a full committee. We talked about our purpose and the process that we were following, decided what was our vision of instructional excellence, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we talk about the rubric, which is the next thing we did is we worked together to create a rubric that was aligned to all of those things that we discussed. It was a really, really long rubric, and so then as we looked at it, we thought, wow, okay, how can we focus in on the most important things? And so we revised that. We started reviewing the print materials and the online materials, listened to presentations from several vendors. Just before this meeting, we met to review the materials that we're kind of narrowing down on using the rubric that we've established. And then our next step will be to make a recommendation to the board. Then the work's not over. That's just the beginning. So hopefully you'll see what we have recommended and say, yes, we agree that this would be appropriate for our students. And then we have to go into what's next. What do we need to do to train the teachers, to train the administrators? Obviously, we have to order the materials and get those all distributed. So our goal would be that once this is approved, hopefully, in May, then we can get things ordered, and then in June, people can start picking up materials or getting access to online materials, assuming that the paper shortage doesn't hurt us. And then we have to go through that process of our curriculum maps and our pacing guides, because they do mention specific resources that we have been using, and so we want to make sure that they are appropriately aligned to the resource that we end up choosing. And then it just keeps going. We have established a curriculum cycle in the last couple of years, and so as we're teaching, gathering evidence, what's working in the program, what's not working in the program, continuing professional development with the teachers, because it's not, it is just a resource. It is not teaching. So how can we help our teachers also improve their pedagogy, give them the support that they need so they feel confident in what they're doing, and then consider what type of revisions we need to make to those original curriculum maps. As I talked to the group today, we talked about there will be some things that are kind of the non-negotiables. Everybody has to do this, and then there might be some time for exploring. Well, maybe we didn't say Unit 4 was a non-negotiable, but maybe you have found time in your, as you've been teaching, or you found that this group of students needs that. So those are the different phases and where we are. So as I mentioned earlier, we established a leadership team, which you can see consists of Mrs. Rogers and from the high school and Mrs. Ford, and then one of our Roberts teachers, intervention specialist,
at Bolick and then another teacher from Bolick. And the reason that we wanted to have the leadership team, we wanted them to be able to communicate back to the other stakeholders because not everybody's on the committee. And then they also worked with our CCR team, who you can see, Dr. Cruz, Mr. Lazar, Mrs. Lewis, and Mrs. Michalik, as we met together via Zoom and had some good conversations talking about, again, helping establish that vision. So we wanted to make sure that everything was coming back to the committee and going out in an appropriate way, and these people are kind of the people that we've asked to do that. Also, as part of the preparation and discovery, our local SST state support team, which is State Support Team 8, and then State Support Team 14, I think is the other one, and then the Ohio Department of Education have been offering online via Zoom professional development in all of these areas. So the first one, and I'll share this with you in case you want to click on the link, but is under that title of All Students Can Read, and it's the idea of how do we meet the needs of students with disabilities. And again, one of our goals is to expose every single student to the same high quality, rigorous materials, and then if we need to support them with some extra help outside of, and it's the same thing they talked about with our elementary literacy program. We want to make sure that we're supporting, but everybody's getting that great education in class. And then there's also part through SST8 is a regional literacy leaders network, and we've been talking specifically about how can we be leaders within the building for our colleagues as well as for our students. What are those key aspects of instruction? So kind of thinking about what we read about in Focus, and then professional development, instructional materials, how do we do that? And again, they're also covering different tiers of instruction and how to use assessments. This is just one quote from one of the high school teachers. Working with the Literacy Committee on our new ELA adoption has been a demanding yet rewarding process. It is helping us work toward our goal of providing consistent, quality instruction for our 6 through 12 students. One thing that I really like is that the teachers have realized that this is a demanding work. It's not just, okay, well, we need something new. It's been 22 years, so let's move on. But it's demanding, but they're excited. Right now, the work that the teachers are putting in has a lot to do with finding the appropriate materials to meet our standards because the previous materials are so outdated. And so we've been talking about the fact that there will be new work, it will be demanding, but it's exciting because we have so much more to offer. And these are the rest of our literacy committee members. So all of these members from the middle school have joined us. Most of them have been able to make every meeting. A few of them have not, but I always send out an update so that everybody on the committee knows what's going on. And again, those literacy leaders in the group help share out to them as well as the other people who aren't involved. And then the next slide is our high school members. And we went through, people were allowed to volunteer, and then we went through and looked at, we wanted to have a wide variety of people represented and what they teach. And we also included our media specialists who work under Mr. Hutch's direction, and they have really been able to provide us a lot of information to help us. So what has the adoption committee been doing? Well, our role is finding materials to engage and enrich our learners. We want them to be high quality, standards based, something, again, we work collaboratively to create a rubric that align with the district goals, to review those materials. One really nice thing is as we're heading towards that new construction, we are also building relationships with these 6 through 12 teachers, some of whom didn't even know each other's names, and now they're meeting together. Today I made them pair up, middle school and high school, and so, just getting to know people that very soon are going to be next door colleagues perhaps, not just in the district colleagues. Again, we work to select our top vendors, and then we will hopefully very soon have a recommendation for you. So the next few slides go through, I just gave you a snapshot, but I printed for you and gave you the entire rubric. So the things that we looked at included, we wanted the student materials to be high quality. We wanted multiple genres. We wanted critical questions that really got students to think about things, about social issues, different points of view that are worth considering, how can we take action? You know, it's one thing to sit and complain, but it's another thing to think about what can I do about that? What impact can I make? And then, again, those things from Schmoker that we've talked about, reading, writing, speaking, listening, thinking, observing. How can we incorporate that on a regular basis within our classes? That's you. We've also looked at differentiated instruction. The teachers really wanted some multimedia materials. Maybe there's some videos, maybe there are different graphic organizers, things like that. How can we help our students by scaffolding, helping them step up from one idea to that deeper idea and meeting all of our students' needs, whether it's at the unit level or the lesson level. We looked at questions and tasks. We wanted to make sure that they reflected grade level standards. So sometimes in the past, and not necessarily just a Cuyahoga Falls thing, but it's almost a default where people might have thought, oh, well, this student is struggling with reading, maybe I need to go down a grade level. Again, we don't want that to happen. We want every student to be exposed. If they're a 7th grader, they should be reading that 7th grade material. How can we help them? That way they're getting exposed to the grade level standards. And then back from the previous slide, how can we help them access that? Oh, well, this student really doesn't have a wide range of vocabulary, so we'll have to pre-teach that. Again, something that we talked about with focus. Oh, I need to help with a graphic organizer. Not just for a student with disability, but any student could benefit from that if that might help them think differently. We also looked at culturally authentic and diverse text as one of our categories. We wanted to make sure that the stories, the poems, the nonfiction, that they were balanced and accurate, whether different personal characteristics of gender, race, ethnicity, disability, and we wanted to make sure that those were positively portrayed and not portrayed with a negative stereotype. The teacher's edition, also important. We wanted to make sure that they were based in our standards and that there were very specific things. Again, pedagogy is important, not just, you can't just hand somebody a book and say, here, go teach. So, what does it provide to help the teachers do what they need to do? Anyone who has ever been part of a new resource, it's overwhelming the amount of things they have. And so how can we kind of narrow that down by chapter and lesson? Electronic materials, we wanted our students to be able to use their Google accounts to be able to sign in. If a teacher makes an assignment in Google Classroom, they don't have to have a different password. They don't have to remember 20 passwords. Parents and guardians don't have to remember 20 passwords, that sort of thing. We wanted our assessments to have rubrics and scoring guidelines so that things are aligned to the standards, and also help for the teachers in interpreting answers on assessments and suggestions for what to do next. So, for example, one of the first product that we had a presentation for, if a student was writing an essay in passive voice, it actually provides a video. It reads it. It doesn't grade it. It reads it and then says, oh, this student isn't speaking with active verbs. And it will actually assign a video to them to watch about passive voice versus active voice and all of that sort. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have been like when I was in the classroom. So, and then we also want common, formative, and summative assessments. That helps us use our teacher-based team time effectively to be able to talk about the same thing. Help us inform our instruction to move forward. So an obvious question is, how were vendors chosen? So I surveyed local districts through our Summit ESC, and also had discussions with various local curriculum directors. I know Dr. Cruz has made some phone calls. We've sent some emails, that sort of thing. And then Ed Reports is something else that is a great resource. It's a nonprofit organization, has 300 people reviewing all over from the United States who have all sorts of professional background and experience. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see. So what Ed Reports does is it rates each text that they've reviewed in terms of the text quality and complexity, how the text does at building knowledge, and the usability. And it's a little bit hard to see, but again, I'll have the link in the slide if you want to go there. There's no password required. And what it does is it gives an overall alignment summary. It looks at each of those categories for each grade level that the text is provided by the company. like 32 to 36 different aspects. And then these people from Ed Reports make a rating. And so what you see there in all green, some of the text that we chose to preview were all green. Now they could be green, yellow, red, just like a stoplight. So we were excited to see that they were in the green. And when we saw them in person, we liked what we saw. So this kind of brings us back to here. Again, we finished reviewing those materials today, kind of a first round review. And then next week I'll be meeting with our leadership team and we'll be going through the rubrics that were submitted. I also sent another survey to teachers and asked them that participated in the committee and asked them to, after we looked at the rubrics, rate which one they would choose, you know, ranking them and that sort of thing. But basically, we know that literacy is our core work. And so as we're working to prepare for implementation, we're excited about the future and what we have going on. We're excited about having quality, rigorous materials that actually match our standards so that we can meet students' needs. And we're excited about the idea of providing professional development to help improve pedagogy to go with those resources. That's all I have for you, unless you have questions.
Question?
I have a question.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Well, first I want to say, sounds exciting, including some technology with the new programs. That's very exciting. And I know that you mentioned that you had some of the teams were working together, both middle schools together and high school and everything. So the program that this is a classroom today and what the classroom's going to look like in 5 or 6 years, obviously they're going to be completely different. Do you think this is something that's going to transition well?
That's a great question. So one of the questions I asked the teachers today was, do you want print and online? I haven't seen the results, but just from talking to them, I think they'd want both. But one of the nice things about the online aspect is that the companies now are able to update that online version. So for example, the most recent company we saw, they have kind of like a current events section. They call it a blast. And they update, I think they said 10 new things each week that go in there, but they vet them before they go in there. So rather than a teacher having to go out and search for an appropriate article or something like that, they do that work. Obviously, it's still a teacher's responsibility to look at it, but I feel like, you know, as our curriculum cycle is about 6 years, and so I feel like with any of the products that we looked at, that we will be comfortable with this for at least the next 6 years.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. And I know you had said that you said the example I think was 7th graders. You want all the 7th graders to be able to be exposed to that 7th grade curriculum. Is there something for people that are like enriched or with like someone that's who's performing well in 7th grade ELA might go to like the 8th grade class, or is there like an in-between?
Sure. So, I mean, we always offer subject area acceleration when it's appropriate, but that being said, our goal would be more to enrich and help those learners maybe dig a little bit deeper so that they're learning what their peers are learning and they can have those conversations and learn from each other. So we're not necessarily going to have it in terms of acceleration, but maybe as we do literature circles, for example, we might do with different novels, and so we might be able to, you know, do it that way or through small groups. Sometimes, anytime a teacher does small groups, we try to change up how we do it. We don't always want the exact same students meeting together because then they're not learning different perspectives. So just sometimes you're going to pair students who might think similarly. Sometimes you're going to pair students who think very differently. Students who learn the same, students who don't. We always try and change it up, otherwise it becomes cliquey. And they're not learning from other people, then they're only learning from those 5 people. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
I was reviewing our curriculum adoption timeline last night to prepare for this, and in it, there's like the timeline, but then there's a second part of that which talks about the process to adopt curriculum, and we came up with that within our own district. That says that we should present materials to the board in March and April. So we're behind the 8 ball on that already, and that's our own process that we said would be an effective curriculum adoption process. So how do we get back on track with that process to make sure we're checking all those boxes that we internally just determined was an effective schedule to follow.
Sure, and I take responsibility for that. The fall just did not lend me to, there were too many other things on my plate, to be honest, to be able to start earlier with the committee. And so that's why we're running behind. But I do have, which I can share with you, I can share the online access, and we do have print materials in the CPC, but we don't have them for all grade levels because some of them the teachers have taken back with them. But I am happy to share that with you if that's something that you'd like to be able to start digging into kind of our top contenders.
Well, when will we have something to present to the board?
Okay, sorry. So on Monday, I'm meeting with the leadership team, and we'll be reviewing the rubrics that were completed today. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with our top 2 companies based on, I did a pre-survey last week, and so I'm meeting with them just to talk like the beginning of pricing, and then we'll definitely be ready in May for an actual, a recommendation to you.
Because it's 2 meetings, so the first one would be a first reading and a presentation, and then approval at the second meeting after that.
Yeah, which shouldn't be a problem. Like I said, we should be right on track for that. And then the funds were set aside either with ESSER funds. I think they was moved to ESSER funds. So so the funds are set aside for us to be able to then just go ahead and place the order. And then, as I said, barring no issues with the paper shortage, teachers will be able to get their materials early in the summer. That's what we did with our math adoption as well. And some teachers came in and got them in June, and some didn't come until August because they had other obligations at home. But they will have online access as soon as I send the order in. The companies are good about that. So.
And then this is for Dr. Cruz. So we're off track on that curriculum adoption map. So what comes next after we adopt this? We've done / are doing. They're all ongoing processes. Literacy at the K-5 level. So what's next? K-5, 6, 12 after this.
Science for K-5.
And then 612 is social studies.
So then will those be in year 1 of the process next year?
I'll have to revisit that
Okay.
chart. I've certainly looked at it, but I wasn't a part of the creation of it, so to speak exactly to it. I know this year for science, we've been working through that, and in fact, I just asked Dr. Seifert for an update. They've been meeting with Mrs. Zender from the ESC. Mrs. Zender. Doctor. They've been doing some preliminary work investigating the science connection to the ELA standards. So they've been working through that and looking to adopt some materials soon. I'll have an update for you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'd rather see you take a little time and get it right than try to rush and get the dates. But you did say that there are some materials in the CPC?
There are.
Okay.
There are.
Stop by, maybe look at those.
Sure. Yeah,
sometime.
of course.
Thank
And
you.
then, I will email the presentation, and I will email a link to the materials with login information
Thank
if you
you.
want to look. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Item E, Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda. Ms. Stoikwa.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yep, we have just the 1 minute and 1 donation from a donor's shoes at Preston.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Item F, Treasurer CFO's business. Ms. Stoikwa.
Okay. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the March 2022 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So moved. Second.
Discussion, Ms. Stoikwa.
Yes. Okay, so let's start alphabetically. We'll go to athletics. Not a whole lot different from what we've been reporting the last few months. You can see revenues are up a little in March compared to the previous years, but obviously the last 2 previous years in March were COVID years. Expenditures are, they kind of start to fall off a little bit here. We've pretty much done a lot of stuff for the year, so you can see how in the past years, and obviously the last 2 years aren't super reflective of probably what it will be, but we start to kind of taper off. So positive result of operations, and again, they have a healthy balance at $145,000, so they're doing good. Food service, also doing well. Revenue of $229,000, expenditures of a little under $180,000. Another positive month, so they are at $465,000 cash balance. As of right now, going into next year, it will be back to paying for school lunches and breakfast. So we're having, some internal discussions on different things and the summer programs and, how we can continue some of the things that we think have worked really well. Breakfast in the classroom being one of them, and getting those, getting students that in the morning. So we're having those internal discussions, but from a cash standpoint, they're doing well. And so we have a little bit of flexibility to be able to do some of those things perhaps going forward. General fund, another month of real estate advances. So similar to the past 2 years, you can see a little under $8 million. Expenditures as well, pretty much in line with where they've been, a little under $5 million. Positive, so we ended a little over $25 million cash balance there. We have we are starting to wind down the year now and look forward to next year and those budgets. So our PO deadline for purchases and putting on requisitions it was last week. So there will still obviously be things that happen, but we are working on closing out this year and taking care of those last few things for the month. And then obviously next month I will be doing the forecast report, which is based on the general fund. So more to come on that. We look at interest. So pretty similar to the prior months, some a little bit more. Obviously we have a higher cash balance, so that's part of the reason due to the real estate advances. So you can see where we were at overall was about a little under 29,000. You can see in our different LFI was about 7,500 for that fund. Our local share portion was a little over 11,000. So we are slowly but surely getting a little bit better, seeing a little bit more in some of those accounts. So that's always a good thing. I'm not going to go into each of the individual construction accounts, but I did want to let you know that we each quarter through the OFCC, they do a drawdown process of funds. I have to submit all our purchase orders and invoices and everything. And while we haven't had a whole lot, we have had some stuff in the way of the Newberry abatements and the tree clearing and just some different preliminary work that we've done. So we did get our first drawdown from the state as far as those funds, and they give it to you and then like a little bit more for the next like quarter. So we did get a little bit. It's not a lot, but we obviously haven't had a lot of expenses yet come through. So, but I was proud of myself that I navigated the OFCC website and got it working.
Gold star, gold star.
Since I've never done that before. So that was good. And I think that might be all on here. Yep, that's all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the OFCC expenditures, where would we see what those are going to? Because that's not going to come. That's not in this, right? Will it be reflected in the disbursement summary report?
Yes,
it will be. So we
will.
would see those come through there. Okay.
Yeah. When you look at the disbursement summary, that's everything from every fund.
Okay.
So you'll see everything go through there. Yep.
Thank you for that. And then If you could, I think when we went through all of these, you explained what this is, but if, for my purposes, you could tell me again, what is the reduction of expenditure ledger report?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to remember, and
Yeah.
all the other ones are making sense, and the new form are making
Yeah.
sense, but that one I was unsure of, so.
So there are some things, so typically most of our expenses are run through the whole purchase order, requisition, check process, and that's how things are done. Occasionally, we receive payments that aren't necessarily a check-based. One being that you see twice a month on this report is our state foundation. So in the state foundation, there are a number of revenues, but there are also a number of expenses. And so the way my system handles it, we don't cut a check for those necessarily because we're receiving money. What I do is I do a receipt, and you can do a negative or a positive to those expense accounts to account for those things. Sometimes it's, for instance, something that a common one you'll see is our BCI. So we pay for those fingerprinting and different things, but we're reimbursed by whomever is getting those. So it's really not a revenue for us per se. It's an offset of something we've already expensed or will expense. And so how it goes in is kind of making it so like that expense never hit that, because it's really not our expense. It's more of like a rotary type thing. So other things you may see a lot of are corrections if I happen to come across something that got posted to the wrong fund, either through payroll or a purchase order. And typically it happens with our grants and different things that it's, oops, it shouldn't have gone there, it should have gone in this one. We make those corrections kind of internally and do like a zero out to offset each other to make sure that they're charged to the right place.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye. Item 2, your comments.
Just a couple. One, I'm going to thank you for allowing me to attend last week, the OASBO conference. It was the first time we've been back in 3 years in person, so it was really great. Everyone was really pumped about that. Just seeing people being together. It's always a great conference. We did a lot of things. There were a lot of great sessions, a lot of good. They always put on a good social time there too. So it was time well spent. Secondly, I just wanted to mention, because I was looking at it today as I was sending out an email to our secretarial staff and our administration about our fees. As you know, we've gone on this pretty much big endeavor of collecting some past due fees and trying to right the ship per se. And one of the things we did this year was waiving all the fees except for a few technology, career tech, and you will see a recommendation in May for the 22-23 school year. But I did some math real quick on what we've received this year in fees versus last year. So in fiscal 21, we did charge fees. We charged all fees. And throughout the entire year, we received about $283,000 in revenue for those fees. And that's across the board. That's pay to participate, technology, and all sorts of school fees. This year through today, which obviously we still have about 2.5 months to go, and we have not charged anywhere near the number of fees. We have collected about $220,000 in fees. So I had sent an email with some updates and other things, but really to give kudos to that building staff and the administrators, especially in my office, Joanne, Pauline Paul, and Laura Duggar, and Kenny Johnson at the high school have really, because of the athletes and different things like that, they've really done a great job this year. Pauline even did mention that it's been a lot less hectic as they're getting towards graduation this year than it ever has been in years past, that it really helped kind of alleviate a lot of that. So I sent them my thanks for it. We knew it would be a rough year, but once we kind of got through it, we would hopefully get a lot of people caught up. And it was a good time to do it with free lunch and not having other fees. So they've really all done an excellent job, and it's paid off. So.
Thank you. Item G, Superintendent CEO's business consent agenda. Mr. Chavity.
Thank you, Mr. President. As recommended, the Board of Education approve all items listed in the superintendent's business consent agenda.
So moved.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Item H, Superintendent CEO's business. Mr. Chavity, your comments, please.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to state that I've been very impressed with the new superintendent and the time that she is spending in the district, meeting with people and really getting organized. I wanted to mention that today we had the opportunity to have a construction update with her and the architects. And thanks to Dr. Selika, Dr. Cruz, and Principal Bogdan, I think we really are moving forward with putting the pencil to the paper with the architects and putting the rooms and assignments there. And the architects are doing a good job working around questions and concerns from different constituents. And I think we're just moving in a positive direction there, so I want people to understand that the process is still moving forward, and from this end, it's very exciting to be part of it, and to hopefully roll that out in the fall with the community is going to be very, very exciting, so I just wanted to announce that. The other thing I wanted to say is a lady reached out to me the other day concerning a 97-year-old gentleman. Some of you may know him, Libert Bazzelli, was a big name in the area, and his wife was big into the Akron fundraising and charity organizations. But he's 97 years old, and he went off to World War II and did not get his high school diploma. And one thing he wants to do before he turns 100 is to get a diploma. And our district, I researched it, our district has done this before at graduation. And I know, talking to some of you, that sometimes you think it might take away from the kids' graduation, but in the discussion with the high school administration, they feel it would add to seeing a 97-year-old person really wanting to graduate. So with the board's permission, I'm going to move forward with the high school and try and get that organized, and I'll let you know how that comes through, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think that sends an important message to our students about the value of a high school diploma, that you can be 97 years old and still care so deeply about that accomplishment. I think it sends a strong message about what we do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Item I, board business number 1, discussion, strategic plan. Ms. White, you requested that we
Yes, I
hop
did.
back to it.
I just want us to rethink our goals, and I'm going to read a little bit from Focus tonight. You'll kind of see where my head is. I know I might not be with everybody. Maybe I'm out there, I don't know. But I'd like to, I don't want to, I think with Focus, simplicity. And having just 1 or 2 goals each building is enough to focus on for a year. So that's what I'd like to see us move to. I think everything's good in the strategic plan. It's a beautiful plan. But do we need to have each building focus on all those areas? And I don't think we do. So that's kind of where I am, but I don't know what do we do or how we get there from where we are. So maybe next year for the building goals, they can look at the student achievement and the wellness caring, and just have the 2 per building somehow. That's what I'd like to see. I think less is better than having too many. So.
Other thoughts? I think you bring up a good point too, because I've talked to Ms. Stoikoi about this, like the resource leveraging goal. Her department's got that, like that's what she does, and we've entrusted her to do that work on behalf of our district every day. And it's not that we don't want building principals to think about their budgets and stuff, but if they're not thinking about them, Mr. Wigley will remind them, and remind them of their budget. So, it's not that they don't need to care about resource leveraging, but that's handled in other ways without having to set a building goal to be stressed about resource leveraging. So I think it's kind of that idea of simplifying things, making sure that we're entrusting the appropriate people to do the appropriate things that they do anyway, and so that we can focus in on the core business, and so that we as a board can really strive to make sure that we're keeping our district accountable for achieving those goals, because that's our piece of the pie, and it's an important piece of the pie to make sure that those goals are being achieved, and where they're not being achieved, to make sure that we're having conversations about why we're not hitting those benchmarks and what we need to do to readjust.
Yeah, and again, it is me, I guess, basically. But with the goals too, when we're looking at data, and usually we use the testing data. I'm not saying you totally disregard tests, state tests and so on, but really, is that the right data to look at? Could there be other data we could be capturing that a lot of our teachers already do? You know, and I'll get into that when I read a little bit and focus more, but let's think about what data we're actually looking at. Do we focus on the test solely? I guess for me, no, but I understand, you know, we have the state, and they're demanding that we have state tests, so, which I don't like, but okay. But again, I want us to get away from that and look at other, and as I said, I'll get into that a little more when I read from Focus tonight.
Well, I think you raise a good point, because so much of MAP testing and state testing is memorization focused, but when we read the book Focus, it talked about how important those classroom spot checks by teachers are.
Yes,
and we know that those are happening. I'm not saying that they're not.
I agree.
But, you know, they make those determinations in their classrooms that the kids in my class understand this concept, and that builds on the next concept I'm going to teach. So now I'm going to teach this next concept. So if that is something that could be data that we're collecting within our district, is how are we making sure that kids know? So it might be that when they go to take the state test, they don't remember every little piece part of that first objective. But we know as a district, because we've talked to our educators about it, that I taught them that, they understood it, and that's why we moved on to the next piece. And if we have that, I think that gives our families and our community something to look at when we say, oh, maybe, you know, the state tests don't look so good, but here's this other way of looking at it, where we know that our kids learned what they needed to learn. And that's why we're confident to move them on, because we know through good teaching strategies that education is occurring, and it's not always being captured in the state test. I'm a terrible test taker.
And a lot of people
So,
are, even
you
though
know.
they're brilliant. You know, again, a lot of people get that way. And so, yeah, I want us to kind of look at our goals and what do we focus on? You know, focus on a good teaching, reading and writing. And to me, that makes more sense. The tests will take care of themselves when we do that. I know other schools have done that, and it works. So far, looking at the test data, it hasn't really raised our scores. I mean, you know, it's like, okay, let's try maybe looking at other data and see what that tells us and gives us. So,
And I think that opens up for future conversations about how do we want, I think we kind of have an idea of what we want our goals based around. We want it around teaching and learning, and social, emotional, sports, culture of caring. We can call it that. We kind of know that those are the two areas we want to be the foci moving forward. And then we need to, as a board, think about what are ways in which we want to receive reports on that information, and then have those conversations, make sure the ways in which we want to receive information are ways that information can be presented, so that we're not losing. So I think that gives us a little bit, pushes us forward a little bit more, and make sure that we're focused on the important things at the classroom level, and then administrative level, you have to be focused on other things sometimes, and that's why we have different pieces parts. I think that gives us a little bit, another push forward to making some progress. Other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on to item 2, future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items they'd like to bring forward?
Well, I do, but I'm not sure we're ready to go there, so I'll ask a question. I'd like to learn a little more about our gifted program, but I don't know when that'll be anything we can have a presentation on, but I'd still like to hear a little bit on that down the road. I mean, it doesn't have to be tomorrow or next meeting, but yeah, just to see where we're going and how we're kind of heading with the gifted program. So I'm still interested in hearing about that.
It sounds like we will have, as a future agenda item, presentation on 612 literacy resource. Once they determine a final resource, I know next month through Dr. Cruz's department, there's going to be a K-5 literacy update, and then also student success and wellness update, and I'll let her determine where she wants to put them. You have? Yeah.
We have one more that would be a requirement with our title funds.
Oh, the annual
Yes.
title fund presentation.
I'll clarify those dates for
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll say for new members, I think you'll find the title fund presentation interesting because it is interesting to learn about those things, and those aren't, there are other funds that don't get captured in the 5-year forecast. So, and then we have the 5-year forecast. You want to do the second meeting in May? I was guessing. So that'll be at the second meeting in May. The annual 5-year forecast, we do that in May and November every year.
Thank you.
Item 3, committee reports. 612 construction core team, Ms. White.
Yeah, we met, I will be attending the meeting tomorrow as well as we set the agenda for our planning committee on the 28th. I'm excited about that. It seems that we discussed the buildings and where offices and where the clinic goes, and I think we've got pretty much worked out with all that. The one area I think that we're having a little trouble, I don't want to say trouble, I shouldn't say that, but a little concern is the 6-9 blocks of academic blocks. So that I think still needs to be kind of looked at, but I think we're in really good shape to, as Mr. Shabby pointed out, have the thing in the fall, the presentation to the public, and I'm really excited because it does look really good from what I've seen. So just that little bit of concern about the 6-9 academic centers with rooms and things like that, but get into that another time.
Thank you. And then you'll be leading the meeting next week. I'll be out of town for our
Oh, okay.
core
Do it.
planning committee and core team meeting.
Oh, okay.
But then I had a question. So
Mhm.
originally they were talking about potentially having something to show in May. I'm not trying to push that if that's not where they are, but if it's going to be, because what I want to make sure that we do is that as a board we have an opportunity, and we have a work session in June, but make sure that we have an opportunity to sit with Scott and have him walk through that to make sure the board understands what's happening before it even goes to the planning committee. I don't want our first experience to be at a planning committee. I want to make sure that we really give that the time to sit through it, to make sure we understand it and that all of our questions can be answered before we push it one step farther. So if we're not ready to have that conversation of when that can be, that's fine too. But just have that idea in our heads about thinking about that, because I think that is very important to all of us up here to make sure we understand it and we can feel comfortable about it before we start explaining it to the community as a whole.
If I could just say, part of that meeting today was for them to kind of alleviate some of the questions that are still out there, and then the plan was, once they come up with a plan on that, is to present to the board, so.
Okay. Because I think it'll need to be its own thing, you know? If we try to add it onto something, it's like, well, are you rushing to? So we'll really need some time to sit through that to make, because I really do think it's important that as representatives of the community that we can all feel well informed to explain to our community why things are where they are, because people are excited, but they're still gonna have a lot of questions. Okay, thank you. Next is Alliance for School and Community Growth. We have a Mr. Shabby.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Shabby, Alliance for School and Community Growth.
Yeah, we had a very good, it would have been a great meeting if Ms. Coco was there, but she was ill. But it's a really great group of people, the businessmen, churches, city people. It's just very uplifting meeting. And this past meeting, there was a gentleman from a company called Pilot Plastics. His father passed away, and he took over the company, and he wants to get more involved in the school districts and helping kids out that maybe aren't college-bound kids, because they do a lot of things with robotics and those types of things. And so I think his name's Mr. Gendersack was his name, I forget his first name, but it was exciting to have him there and propose that he's going to come through the buildings. He's working with the high school counselors, high school principals, to really help provide some opportunities for kids at a high rate of pay and to train them, that kids that may not be college-bound students. So that's exciting. But a lot of good things come out of that meeting, and it's a really good, supportive group of people. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you. Athletics and Activity Council.
I don't have the next date yet.
Board policy, we are working to get a meeting set. Okay. Business Advisory Council, Mr. Harris and Ms. Coca.
Yes, our next meeting is May 24th at 8 a.m.
Financial Advisory Committee.
Our next meeting is May 12th.
Foundational Alumni Association, that's me. I wasn't able to make our last meeting because it was the same time as the CARE Award dinner, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that our scholarship recognition reception is May 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. We're going to be awarding scholarships to 45 high school seniors, teacher grants, and we'll also be giving out our 2021-2022 Distinguished Alumni and Distinguished Service Awards. And I wanted to read out who's getting those awards this year. So we're giving Distinguished Alumni Awards to 4 people. The first is the Honorable Richard Fry, class of 1966. He is a lawyer in the Columbus area for over 30 years. And he is, since 2005, has served as a judge on the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. He's been recognized for leadership with the team that designed and built the new Franklin County Courthouse that opened in 2011. Sticking with the legal theme, we have Dorothy Marie Lane, class of 1984. She's had a 29-year career as a public defender, advocating for the fair administration of justice. She's currently serving our country's veterans as a project director for Justice for Vets, and she's in the Cuyahoga County area. We have Mark Noonan, class of 1968. He graduated from the University of Akron and spent his early career working in various sales and leadership positions at Honeywell, and then he became president of a multi-business conglomerate of companies based in Cincinnati. And currently he shares his business development expertise as an industry consultant. His IT experience has led to significant contributions of time and talent to the development of our foundation website and online systems, processes, and preservation of the history of our organization. He's the person that has scanned in almost 100 years worth of yearbooks to make sure that those are preserved and people can access those. We have John Putnam, class of 1968. He graduated from the University of Akron with a bachelor's in mathematics, and he spent his career as an entrepreneur, inventor, and international business leader. He has been profiled in the book Wheel of Fortune, Rubber and Plastics News, and the Washington Post. He is currently the president of Nanotronics, and his son serves as the CEO of the company. And then we're giving out a Distinguished Service Award, which is to someone who's not an alumni but has served our community, and that's going to Karen Schofield. And the bio on her says, Ms. Schofield's entire life has been dedicated to public education and community service. She has served as a teacher as well as an educational administrator in local school districts. Upon retirement from her career in public education, she was appointed to a position on the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education, where she served for 9.5 years, with the majority of those years as president of the board. She also serves on the local YMCA board, volunteers for the Humane Society of Summit County, and as a guardian ad litem for the Summit County Juvenile Court. We'll be honoring those people along with our teacher grants and 45 seniors getting scholarships. And what's really nice is all 5 of those people are asked to share a little story about the graduates, about how their time at Cuyahoga Falls set them up for what they were able to accomplish in life. And for Ms. Schofield to talk about what the Cuyahoga Falls School District has meant to her. It's very moving to hear those.
What time is that?
Could you-
7 p.m.
Thank you.
on
And the
May
date?
9th at the auditorium here.
Thank
Next up is our legislative liaison, Mr. Harris.
Yes, I have a few things here. Couple recently enacted pieces of legislation, actually just one, Senate Bill 11, which makes changes to paid leave for Juneteenth by requiring school districts to grant regular non-teaching school employees who are employed on a 11 to 12-month basis paid leave, and removes the requirement that school districts grant paid leave to regular non-teaching school employees who are employed on a 9 to 10-month basis. It also modifies the procedures for uniform services and oversees absentee voting in the 2022 primary election. Some pieces of legislation that were recently introduced. House Bill 592, which establishes the Urban Farmer Youth Initiative pilot program to provide relevant programming and support with regard to farming and agriculture for students ages 6 through 18 who live in an urban area, and to appropriate $250,000 each in fiscal years 2022 and 2023 to support the program. Another one, House Bill 601, which would increase the STRS and SERS employer contributions from 14% to 18%, phased in over 8 years. House Bill 606 would require public and charter non-public schools to create an individualized seizure action plan for each enrolled student who has an active seizure disorder diagnosis, requiring each school to have at least one employee trained on implementing seizure action plans, and require students to receive age-appropriate instruction on seizure disorders. And then obviously House Bill 616, which I mentioned last time, the Don't Say Gay bill. Actually, I have a couple more, I apologize. Senate Bill 308, which would prohibit state and local governments, including school districts, from investing in, granting incentives to, or contracting with Russia or companies based in Russia to require STRS and SERS and Bureau Workers of Compensation, among others, to divest from such holdings of any identified company based in Russia. Senate Bill 316 was introduced to delay the 2022 primary election to June 28th and to declare an emergency. And then lastly, Senate Bill 318, which would require the establishment of a universal preschool program in the event that Congress appropriates the funds to do so. That's all I have.
Thank you. Student Achievement Liaison.
Yes, I talked about the last meeting, at the last board meeting. We will meet again in May, and I think it's the 24th, 23rd, I'm not sure. I can't remember when we made it, but it is at the end of May.
Thank you. Student Wellness and Success Liaison, that's me. We had a little bit of a conversation at our agenda review last week about the state of Cuyahoga Falls has community development block grant monies that we get from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they can't disperse those to other governmental agencies. But one of the things that they do through their public service funding is providing funding to Good Neighbors. So we had some conversations about how we can strengthen our partnerships with Good Neighbors with that funding. Try to perhaps meet some more of the needs of our students. And that brings us to item 4, comments. I'm up. First was a bit of sad news. We lost someone who was a longtime math educator in our district. Scott Dubiel died over the weekend. Taught at Sill and then went so close. He came here to the high school and retired. He was a phenomenal educator, and we send our best to his family and friends. Want to shout out on a happier news the welcome event we had for Dr. Selico last week. I thought it was very nice, and again, thanks to the Gold Tones for performing. People will say these other ones. I'll save some for you. But I'm very excited for the art walk tomorrow night from 5 to 8 down on Front Street. and working with the National Endowment for the Arts Fund that the city got, and they have nationally renowned artists coming in town that will be at the art walk. It's really exciting to see what was just Jen Schulman's crazy idea 8 or 9 years ago, now to have it tied in with nationally renowned artists coming to town because of that. It's really impressive, something to be proud of. Mr. Harris.
Yes. First off, congratulations to our top Tigers, the robotics team, and our staff award winner. I also want to thank Dr. Cruz and Mrs. Gudones for their presentation on literacy. I also was able to attend the CARE Award dinner. I know we recognize those folks this evening. I just want to wish them another congratulations, Mrs. Fitzsimmons and the school nurse, Miss Nakaza. Again, thank you to the parents, students, and community members who came out last Wednesday to welcome Dr. Selico to the district. And as a jazz guy, I do have to give a special shout out to the Gould Tones for an amazing, incredible performance. I was blown away and a little embarrassed that was the first time I had heard them. A reminder that, again, Mr. Gomez reminded us, Art Walk is tomorrow. I think they're calling for a little rain, but it is Ohio, so it's very hard to tell what will happen. So it could be sunny, you never know. And then lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a few words about this House Bill 616, or the Don't Say Gay bill, that was recently introduced in the Ohio House. My brother is gay. I sit on this board with a gay colleague. I have friends and other colleagues who identify as LGBTQ+. They all have different stories about coming out, about how difficult it might have been to do this in their families, in their schools, and in their communities. This bill, if passed, is going to make it more difficult for a generation of kids who identify as LGBTQ+, to find that acceptance and find that empowerment. It's a blatant attack on diversity and inclusion and is nothing more than an archaic mindset wrapped in faux patriotism to prevent teachers and students from discussing important and often personal issues. This bill will do nothing more than take local control away from school boards and attacks our students, it attacks our teachers, and it attacks our families. I encourage my colleagues on the board, and I've had discussions with most of you, to consider a resolution in the coming weeks to voice our total opposition to this hateful and completely political bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Schaefer.
I don't have much. I do want to say that I was also able to attend the CARE Awards, and the stories and the presentations for the award winners, it was really moving. It's why we're here, why we do what we do. The reception for Dr. Selico, again, the Gold Tones, I think they played different songs. I don't think they hit any of the same songs they did in their last performance, so that's super impressive. And I also wanted to take note that I think we all received the invitations for the Lemonade Day. We get the thank you notes for attending events and everything, and it's really nice. I enjoy going to the events. I enjoy being involved. I enjoy all those things. So when they're thanking me for going, I feel like I want to thank them for inviting me and thank them for allowing me to participate in these types of events. It's, again, why we're here. I love seeing the things that the children and the students and the teachers are doing in our school systems, and proud to be a Black Tiger. And that's it.
Ms. White.
Ms. Coco, would you like to go before me?
I'll be happy to, but I'll sit through.
Read, so if you
Yes,
like.
I won't be probably as long as
That's what I'm afraid
I'll
If
read.
you'd like.
Everyone's pretty much hit on this. Events coming up, but just to reiterate, the Art Walk. There's a preview tonight till 8 p.m. if anyone's listening and wants to run down there, but the actual activities are tomorrow evening. We haven't got to have that event in person for 3 years, you know? So really the Art Walk is such a great example of what can happen when the district and the community work together. And it's just an exciting thing. So if you can get down there, please do. Congratulations to the top Tigers. As I was sitting here, it popped in my head that the middle school top Tigers that were sitting here have never had a quote-unquote normal year of school. they've been through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and, these weren't necessarily 8th graders, but none of our middle schoolers have been through a normal year, and high schoolers are seniors, they were in 9th grade. So for them to be here and to be representing everything that our goals for our top Tigers and everything that we are really is remarkable to me, especially in what has happened over the past 3 years. And that leads into Teacher Appreciation Week is the first week of May, and they haven't had a normal year either for 3 years. And they're the reason that we have top Tigers. So I want to send a shout out to them. That's it.
I believe Ms. White passed on her opportunity.
I just traded places.
Mr. Gomez, can I mention, I don't know if any of you saw it, but this morning, Amy might have been the only one up, Dr. Cruz, if you want to see it, but the Channel 5 did about a 7-8 minute piece on the art walk. It was very well done. I think it was 6:07 in the morning. She has it there, yeah, so she'll forward it to you.
Thank you.
One more thing, sorry, with the 97-year-old is amazing, hit close to home. My grandmother celebrated her 99th birthday this past weekend, and she is someone who has never stopped learning and is the reason that she is as sharp as she is at 99 and sharper than I am, honestly. So I just had to shout that out. Hi, Grandma.
I just wanted to make a couple quick comments. The Cure Banquet was wonderful, and the Art Walk tomorrow, which also the Gold Tones will be playing at the pavilion there. So just those two things. If you want to catch the Gold Tones again, they're always there. So I just wanted to continue reading from Focus. So you can all, you don't have to stay. Again, but okay. So this is chapter 2, Teach. And so just a few things. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, achievement has soared in schools in which a coherent, content-rich, multi-year curriculum has been employed. American Educator, it has become increasingly certain that knowledge acquired from a content-rich curriculum is the key to reading ability, that what we know determines how well we can comprehend. And I just, so important. Okay. A combination of the following curricular components for all students would be adequate amounts of essential subject area content, concepts, and topics, intellectual thinking skills, argument, problem solving, etc., and authentic literacy, purposeful reading, writing, and discussion as the primary modes of learning both content and thinking skills. And there's a couple more spots, of course. A common academic core, which is adequate amounts of essential content with critical thinking skills, with sufficient opportunities, again, to read, write, and speak. So important for all students in all classrooms. And the best means by which to exploit the connection from analytical and learning contact is through higher order literacy activities with a redoubled emphasis on books, textbooks, newspapers, and magazines in all subject areas. So again, I'm glad to see that our Literacy 612 is looking at different genres, different things like that our students can learn from. And when I talked a little bit about the goals, maybe we're looking at the wrong data. And what data should we be collecting? Well, what we would define for every course in the curriculum, the minimum number of pages to be read, the minimum number of pages to be written, minimum number of papers to be completed, a common scoring guides for written work. That is so important across the curriculum. Those are some of the goals that I'm talking about. Let's find out how much they are actually reading in class, how much they are writing in class. And I think Mr. Gomez also said we'll get to the teachers and how they teach a little later, but again, those are the most essential things. When we know our kids are actually reading and writing, they think critically, they learn. Yes, we need to help some of our lower level students get there, but they shouldn't be given lower level books. They should be reading on grade level, age levels, and I'm so glad that our 612 Literacy Committee is going there. If we could institute only one change, it would be the amount and quality of writing students are expected to produce. That makes them ready for college, if they're going there. Even for businesses. Businesses now have to write and read as well. So there are just several points throughout that chapter that I wanted to make, so not too long, I hope. I'm done.
Item J, adjournment. Motion to adjourn is recommended the Board of Education. Next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
7:20.